week 6 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few tight ends I looked at on the wire this week. The first guy, Cade Otton of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we know Cameron Brate was out of this ball game, and Otton had to fill in with Brate out with the concussion. And he had a solid ball game in PPR league. 6 catches, 43 yards on 7 targets. And tight end, it's been a tough position once again this season to really gauge what these guys are going to do. Even Mark Andrews, we've seen him have an off game or two this season so far. Waller, he really hasn't been the same. And Travis Kelce, though. He's putting up those numbers. But besides that, a lot of inconsistency at the tight end position. Some guys go off some weeks, and then the next week they either have a goose egg or do nothing. So right now, with Tom Brady throwing out in the ball and him possibly taking over for Brady as the starter, he's a target that's a little interesting here. And he's available in 98% of fantasy leagues. The next guy, Zach Gentry of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the only reason I mentioned Gentry, Pat Freiermuth left the ball game with a concussion. And Pickett obviously has good rapport with some of these backups, obviously from training camp and preseason. And Zach Gentry came in to fill in for Freiermuth, and he had a decent ball game. 5 catches, 43 yards, which is good for 9-3-0 in PPR league. So right now, Freiermuth in the concussion protocol. And this Steelers team, they've been a train wreck this season. 1-4 on the year. Not a lot of competitive ball games for them. And week 6 versus Tampa Bay here, they're going to have to throw the football a lot if they just want to remain close. And if Freiermuth's out, Gentry's a deep ad in deeper leagues here. And he's available in 100% of fantasy leagues. The next guy is Andy Trotman of the New Orleans Saints. So Trotman, he has that pop game once in a while here. And he had it, obviously, in week 5 versus Seattle. 2 catches, 32 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. So week 6 here, decent matchup versus the Bengals that are middle of the pack versus tight ends in fantasy football. But right here, we just don't know the state of this Saint offense. Taysom Hill had a monster ball game. Jameis Winston as the fraction isn't back. But obviously, they want more of a traditional quarterback back there, like a Winston or Dalton. We're not going to see Taysom really take snaps as a quarterback, just wildcat and trickery plays. But right now, Trotman, 2 weeks in a row, pretty decent. Week 4 versus Minnesota, 3 for 37. And then the 2 for 32 and a touchdown. But like I said, tight end's a tough position to find. And I'm just throwing some deeper names out there since there's not much available. And Trautman's available in 100% of fantasy leagues. The next guy's Emmett Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Evan Ingram signing from the Giants, going to the Jaguars in the offseason. And he had his best game to date as a Jaguar in week 5 versus Houston. 6 catches, 69 yards on 10 targets. So right now they took away Christian Kirk in that ball game as Houston, and they made Evan Ingram and Marvin Jones try to beat him in the ball game. And they played good football, but they couldn't get the job done in this Jacksonville offense. I don't know. It seems like the first few weeks they were fluky getting off to good starts, and now defenses have seen some tape on them and starting to stop them. So Ingram had a good game, but he's not a monster priority for me, but he's definitely a guy if you need a tight end with bye weeks or just guys underperforming. He's got a good matchup in Indianapolis that gives up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends this season. The next guy is Danny Bellinger of the New York Giants. I mentioned Bellinger a couple times as a sleeper over the last few weeks. And like I said, this Giant team, they don't have many guys to throw to. And Danny Bellinger's getting chances. Darius Slayton back in the mix. And Bellinger even had a rushing touchdown in the ball game in London versus Green Bay. 2 rush yards with a touchdown and 2 catches, 22 yards. So the Giants here got the Baltimore Ravens coming up, and we know they're vulnerable through the air here. But he's another dart throwing a deep league desperation guy here is Daniel Bellinger, available in 99% of fantasy leagues. And the final tight end I look to get on the wire this week, and the top target, no doubt about it, on the wire tight ends, Hayden Hurst of the Cincinnati Bengals. So Hayden Hurst the last few weeks here, it looks like he's getting back to form a little bit like he did at the end of his run in Baltimore in his first season in Atlanta a few years ago. So the last 2 games here for him, week 4 versus the Dolphins, 3 catches, 27 yards and a touchdown. And week 5 at Baltimore, 6 catches, 53 yards and a touchdown. So once again, T. Higgins left this ball game with injury here. And that means maybe more targets will open up for Hayden Hurst if Higgins has to miss sometime. So right here, last 2 games he's playing good football. Tight end's a very weak position, an inconsistent position so far in the first 5 weeks of the season here. And Hurst right now, he's available in 71% of fantasy weeks. That's a few tight ends I looked at on the wire here for week 6 of the fantasy football season.